We greet our friends everywhere with Chapter 18 of This Is My Song, the story of Fanny Crosby. This is another in the series, Stories of Great Christians, and comes to you from the Moody Bible Institute of Chicago. The year 1902 dawned much like any other year for Fanny Crosby and her husband Van. The long winter of New York gave way to spring, and all over the nation people were singing the hymns written by Frances Jane Crosby. Never be sad or desponding, rescue the perishing, all the way my Savior leads me, and countless others. Yet in spite of the renown that came with her songs, Fanny was the same as ever, a woman of reverent faith and vigorous service, who passed her life in writing verse that glorified the Lord. And in the long spring evenings, she passed the hours quietly with her beloved Van, or with the friends that surrounded her and made her life so broadened and so full of warmth. A day in the earliest part of spring, if it could be called spring, was a very special day for Van and Fanny. It was their wedding anniversary. Van was always reluctant about going to the school to teach. This year he seemed more hesitant about leaving Fanny than ever. However, Fanny usually persuaded him that his duty was to his work. On this particular year, friends of Fanny and Fan were arranging a small dinner party for them in the evening, and the faithful Bess was determined that the house would look its finest.
How many are we expecting, ma'am?
Let's see, Iris Sankey, George Stebbins, Miss Meyer and Mr. Bigelow from the Institute, and, of course, W.H. Doane.
Is he coming?
I know you like him best. You don't fool me.
Well, if I do, I don't like to have to call him W.H.
Oh, that isn't so hard, and he does enjoy it so.
W.H.
Is the silverware polished?
Not yet.
We'd better get at it then. You just lay the things out on the kitchen table and I'll do it.
But you shouldn't have to work today.
Nonsense, Bess. I want to do it. And I'm too excited to write this morning.
Bess and Fanny spent the day preparing for the evening celebration. They hardly had time to notice the hours slip by. When 5 o'clock came, Van arrived home with Fanny's favorite flowers, American Beauty roses. And by 6:30, the house was ready to receive the evening guests.
Fanny?
Yes?
Yeah, it's nice of our friends to plan this evening, but seriously, I'd much rather spend it alone with you. Must be getting old.
Then I must also. I feel the same way. But you know Sankey and the rest. They so wanted to give us a party.
I know.
We couldn't refuse. And it'll be fun, Van.
Oh, yes, I know. When one is married to such a popular lady...
It's really your music they come for. Well, my dearest, shall we brave our guests and show them we're even happier today than the day we were married?
That was 44 years ago.
I can't believe it. I thought men were supposed to forget dates and numbers and all that. Now, don't you go telling all our guests I'm 82 years old.
Oh, my dearest, you get younger every year.
Well, all the women in my family are disgracefully long-lived.
I'm glad.
And you, Van, are you going to stay with me all these last years to come?
Oh, Fanny, what a question. What made you ask that?
I don't know. I feel worried about you lately. You don't sleep well, I know, and Bess says you eat poorly.
Fanny, this is our wedding anniversary. Now, let's not spoil it with worrying.
You're right, as always, my dear. Let's go down and welcome our guests.
Fanny, Bess is a wonder.
We're more than thankful for her, Ira.
I can see why Mr. Bigelow insisted she take charge of the food.
I said it would be disastrous to leave Bess out of it, and I was right.
You were right. Well, it seems that we're all finished with dinner. Let's retire to the living room. Now, if I'm not mistaken, and I hope I am not, I guess that we're going to have a hymn sing.
You are absolutely right. But first, we have something for you. A poem.
A poem?
All the way from England and dedicated to you, Fanny.
It came yesterday in the mail, Fanny. I thought it would be nice to save it for tonight.
Mr. Sankey's going to read it for us. And then we're going to sing and sing. And Van's going to help us out in that department, I'm sure.
I'd be glad to.
But first, the poem.
Yes, do read
by all
it.
means.
It's from a very great English poetess, Fanny. A correspondent of yours.
Frances Ridley Havergal.
Mm-hmm. Dear blind sister over the sea, an English heart goes out to thee. We are linked by a cable of faith and song, flashing bright sympathy swift along. One in the east and one in the west, singing for him whom our souls love best.
After that dinner, I didn't think I could ever eat another thing. Here we are at it again.
This is just a bedtime snack, Mr. Bigelow.
That cake looks gorgeous, Bess. Fanny, Van, Bess has it all heaped up with icing and congratulations written on it.
And little pink flowers all around the border. I'll see to it that you get some of the flowers, Vanny.
I should hope so. And Van, too.
It sounds delicious, but no cake for me, thanks.
Aren't you feeling well, Mr. Van Alstyne?
Now, Bess, you feed a man almost to death at supper, and then ask him if he isn't well a few hours later if he still can't eat. That's a woman for you.
Van's been worrying me lately. I think we ought to persuade him to go to a doctor for a checkup.
Wouldn't hurt, Van.
Wouldn't even cost much.
Now, see here, this is supposed to be an anniversary celebration, not a health conference.
Oh, Van's right. Speaking of conferences, Mr. Bigelow, did Fanny ever tell you about last summer at Northfield Conference when she spoke?
No.
Oh, now, Ira, let's not begin on that.
Yes, Sankey, do tell Mr. Bigelow about Fanny getting up to speak in front of such a multitude.
Well, I'll tell you, Mr. Bigelow, it wasn't the crowds that bothered me as much as the famous company of men I had to sit with on the platform. Dr. A.J. Gordon was in charge of the meeting. Sankey was leading the singing.
That's right.
Dr. A.T. Pearson was there, and reporters,
And the famous Fanny Crosby.
Here, here.
and there was Fanny protesting that she couldn't speak until Dr. Gordon had to get severe with her.
Dr. Gordon, it's a great honor to sit up here on the platform with you, but I cannot speak. Now, that is final.
Fanny, I don't like to speak to you like this, but I must ask you, do you speak to please man or God?
Why, I hope to please God.
Well, then, go out and do your duty. And, Fanny, I'm sure Sankey will ask you to read one of your hymns. Perhaps you have a new one?
And throughout my life, Jesus Christ has been my light and my salvation. Now, Mr. Sankey has asked me to recite one of my hymns for you, and he thought you might be especially interested in a new hymn. The hymn I shall recite now is a new hymn. It has never been published. In fact, no one except my dear husband has heard it before this congregation tonight. It is called Saved by Grace. Someday the silver cord will break, and I no more as now shall sing. But oh, the joy when I shall wake within the palace of the King. Someday my earthly house will fall, I cannot tell how soon 'twill be. But this I know, my all in all has now a place in heaven for me. And I shall see him face to face and tell the story saved by grace. And I shall see him face to face and tell the story saved by grace. I pray that this hymn will speak to others as it has to me. Thank you all, and God bless you.
Why, Fanny, I didn't know that you introduced Saved by Grace that way.
You have to pry information out of Fanny. I'm glad I was there, or I wouldn't have heard about it either.
Well, I don't think it's so much of a story to tell. Have some more coffee, Ira. You must be worn out from all your talking.
Oh, not me, thanks. And when Fanny sat down, I said to her, "Where have you kept that piece?" And Fanny just said, "I've kept it stored away for an emergency." She'd written it 2 years earlier.
Well, who wrote the music?
Wasn't it George Stebbins?
Yes. One of the reporters at the conference copied the hymn as Fanny quoted it. Later, when I saw it printed up in the paper, I sent the words to Stebbins, and he did the music.
Well, it's a grand hymn.
It's become one of D.L. Moody's favorites.
Ah, Fanny, what a pleasant evening. But it's getting so late. I must be going, my dear.
Oh, yes, look at the time. I must be off, too. Well, many congratulations to you and Van, Fanny.
Yes, indeed. May you have many more happy years together.
Someday the silver cord will break, and I no more as now shall sing. But oh, the joy when I shall wake within the palace of the King. And I shall see him face to face and tell the story saved by grace. And I shall see him face to face and tell the story saved by grace.
And so we conclude Chapter 18 of This Is My Song, the story of Fanny Crosby. This is another in the series Stories of Great Christians, and comes to you from the radio studios of the Moody Bible Institute of Chicago.